Hey, welcome to Integrative Preparedness. I'm Steve Smith. I want to talk today about violence, about the very real possibility of impending violence. A couple things I want to slip in here. Before that, um, those of you who have ordered books, most of the orders are out, but I've got a couple of recent orders that have come in only to find out that I was out of the revival. So that's the second in the book series, and getting low on the renewal. So I have put in new orders for those. I This isn't the first time I've run out, and it's because the orders to me kind of go in ebbs and flows. I guess I need to stock more, and I just didn't realize it. And a bunch of orders came in, and so they went out, and now I'm out. But they should be in. If you're waiting on delivery on your order, should be in here pretty soon, and I'll get them right out to you. For those of you wondering, what in the world is he talking about? It's my books. I always put the link down here. You can either order them from Amazon or you can order them from me. And either way, I hope you enjoy them. That'll be great. Uh, Secondly, I'm going to be talking about violence in this one. Uh, one of the problems that people of faith, especially of the Christian faith, have with violence is that they believe in many cases that we are called to be nonviolent. That is not right. That is a misunderstanding. And for those of you who are interested, for those of you, whether you're of the Christian faith or not, I invite you anyway. My sermon this Sunday on Stonemont Church, I'll put that down there too on the Stonemont Church channel, will be entitled Two Swords. It's about the proper thinking of self-defense, which can include violence. It's not something that people should be confused about, because I think that confusion in that case freezes them. I know that many of us, whether it was police or military, if we were people brought up in the faith, we had some issues with that we needed to get over. Anyway, that's what I'll be talking about in this Sunday, and if you'd like to join us, the link is also will be down there. Okay, if you've been following what's happening around the world, if you've been following what's happening in Great Britain and France, in Australia, and I have put more and more of those videos over on the Patreon channel, also linked down there. We do a lot over there, by the way. You might think, gosh, he keeps on. Well, we do a lot. And we do a lot over on Patreon that we don't do here. So if you're interested in that link's down there too. I think that's all the links that I've got. But I come at things from a directional pathway, and they all kind of fit together. And so that's why I want to let you know about them. But back to violence. If you've watched what's happening in the world, you see that the response to government oppression is growing. Now, we saw a lot of violence here, what was it, last summer or whenever, when all those idiots from Antifa and BLM were raising Cain and burning things down and destroying businesses. And our government sat back on their hands and directed the police not to do anything and let them have their way. Just let them riot. Let them destroy things. Let them destroy people's lives. Let them put other people in danger. Our government failed in one of their primary responsibilities, which is to provide security and safety, not necessarily for individuals, but for the people at large. That's one of their primary functions, their basic responsibility. They failed entirely. But it wasn't just a failure that they weren't able to. It was a failure because they refused to. Okay? That tells us everything we need to know. The government refused to provide security for the good, hard-working, tax-paying citizens by allowing outlaws, terrorists, domestic terrorists essentially, to rampage through their cities while doing nothing about it. When a government refuses to provide the safety and security for its people, it is aiding and abetting those who are destroying our country. Aiding and abetting those who are destroying our livelihoods, people's businesses, putting people in physical danger themselves. What would you call a government like that? What kind of government would do that? That's a good question, and I think each person individually will have that answer. I think we'll all come to the same answer on that, pretty close. I'm not going to say it right here, but I think you get my drift. Should we continue to obey that government? That's a question. That's simply a question that our founders asked. That's not a question that Steve Smith asked. That's not a question that YouTubers are asking. That's not a question that the average citizen is asking right now. It's Steve Smith and YouTubers and average citizens going back and reviewing our founding documents and saying, what did our founders have to say about this? Well, once we have that answer firm in our minds, then it's time to move on. We're seeing the repression grow. We have seen it in those clips that I've put over on Patreon. Australia is, I think, quickly reaching a boiling point. It's simmering now. It could turn into a full boil pretty soon. And you know what happens when it's in a pressure cooker and you don't let off steam? You know what happens. We're in the early stages of that here in our country, the United States. And I know that I should, because I didn't realize how many viewers I have here, and welcome to all of you, from outside the United States. And we're all freedom-loving people, have a lot more in common with each other than we do with our particular governments. Isn't that the truth? So we all have a stake in what's happening. I think that the United States is in the earlier phases of what's happening now in Australia. What's keeping it down is open to debate. Actually, I'm not going to get into that right now. But I think that they're pushing it with these mandates. Now, we're already seeing some of these places back down, and that's interesting, because all the people that were saying, oh, you can't do anything about it, when I would say stand up, well, a lot of people are standing up, and some of these places are backing down. Now, do I think that that's going to work in the long run? No, I think that they're going to continue to push. They're going to give a little bit over here so they can hammer harder over here. They're not going to give up, because these people are ideologues. They are bound and determined to turn this country into a social little utopia of their own. Socialist utopia. And they're getting close. But the kind of violence that I see coming may be as a result and in response to this tyrannical overreach. And if we see that, when we see that, it's going to be like nothing we've seen for quite a while. Let me say that. We haven't seen anything like that since the 1860s. Now that's the large picture. What about the small picture? The small picture that I really want to suggest to you today is how important it is for you to be ready to handle violence or violent situations on an individual level. If you go back, and there's a place up somewhere up here, somewhere above, I think, or below, or somewhere on the page, that this is playing, because I just recently discovered it, and I know all of you who have known all along are thinking, wow, man, I mean, when is he going to learn all about this stuff? Because all I know how to do is sit here in front of a camera and talk, right? And then I can basically get it up on YouTube. But somewhere up there, it allows you to see the list of my videos, like from oldest to newest. And if you hit that and you go back to some of my very first ones, I talk about violence. And I rather than go through the whole thing right now, it'd serve you just as well to go back and watch those. I talk about the nature of threats. For those of you who may not know, I was a police officer for a long time. I was in intelligence for a long time. I was undercover for a long time. I taught combatives and martial arts for a long time. It seemed like most of my adult life was spent dealing with violence, and it's very interesting. At least it was to me. It was a very interesting subject, and so I studied it and I learned about it and I taught people about it. Sadly, right? I try. I've kind of gone beyond that now. I really don't like to deal with violence, but I'm happy to share my thoughts on this, and I still teach people sometimes. That's kind of got off the track. Go back there. I talk about the nature of threats. How a threat, a violent threat, often happens suddenly, but never or not usually without warning. Okay, that's in one I think called The Nature of Threats. Then I talk about the three enemies. When you're faced with a violent, we'll let him go by. When you're faced with a violent situation, most people are not used to having to deal with violent situations. You're faced with three enemies, I call them the three enemies, and that is confusion, fear, and then the attacker. Okay, so watch those. But what I want to just mention today is that everyone should be ready at all times to deal with a sudden, violent situation or conflagration. What is that word? I'm stumbling on. You know what I mean. As these social collapses happen, these things can flash at any moment. They can flash at any place, any time. The truckers may be getting ready to strike. What happens when the stores are running out of food? The mandates are trying to be pushed harder. What happens as the response gets stronger and stronger and stronger? More people lose their jobs. Right now, a lot of people know they're about to lose their jobs. What happens when they do lose their jobs and reality hits? This is the recipe for violent confrontation. Whether you're a part of it or whether you get stuck in it doesn't make any difference. If you have violence come to you, you need to know how to deal with it. And with this, I mean violence from every. Now, I don't consider yelling and screaming violence. I know a lot of people say that, a raised eyebrow is emotional violence. That's not me. Real violence has to do when somebody's trying to hurt you, or worse. So it can happen at any time, and you need to be prepared to respond to it, as opposed to react to it. Reaction is means that they're in control. You're not. A lot of reaction is unthinking, right? A response means that you are responding to it, you are thinking about it, you are coming back at that, you are dealing with that situation appropriately so that it's going to end up in your favor, hopefully, okay? But you need to be able to respond to these things properly and effectively, regardless of whether they are on the low end of the spectrum of just someone grabbing you or swinging at you, or whether they are on the high end of someone trying to take your life. You need to be ready for anything in that area, and you need to be prepared all the time. Now it's getting more real. As we go into the fall, we'll just kind of see a lot of things can come into play on this. The weather can come into play. Other things going on in the world, we don't know. But I would suggest you be ready for violence anywhere at any time. If for those who don't carry, consider it. You know, I think everyone should. An armed society is a polite society, and an armed society is a safer society. So, but that's up to you. You know, you need to be able to handle yourself physically, whether it's with a hand to hand, or whether it's with the ultimate. But the most important thing on this is mental readiness. Okay, more people get into trouble even when they're all outfitted. They could have they could be carrying, they could be everything. If they're not ready, they've prepared to lose. You know that old saying that a failure is to prepare is preparation to fail. Well, that's true. And the main thing here is that you keep it in the front of your mind that these things can happen anytime. Just start thinking about it. Keep your eyes and your ears open. Watch what's going on around you. Watch the news. You need to know what's going on around you. For those of you who are on social media, Facebook is an excellent source of information. I know that there are people who say, stay off of that, you're giving up too much information. Information goes both ways. And you don't have to give up information about yourself. The information that they're going to get passively, they already have. But you don't have to. But keeping track of what's going on in the world, I found that depending on who you follow, I never say anything on Facebook, but I monitor it. I monitor it just like all the intelligence agencies do. And if you are keeping yourself from that information, well, you're shorting yourself in that area. So whether it's Facebook or TikTok, I don't know how to use the other ones. What are they? I don't even know what they are. TikTok. I always get stuff from people on TikTok. I can't access it because I don't remember what my login was. I think I enrolled one time or whatever, and I don't remember what it was. But anyway. Be ready. Be ready at all times. Violence, when it comes, is there suddenly. And too many people, whether it's an individual crimes against person situation or whether it's a riot that people get caught up in, they're always surprised how suddenly it happened, how quickly it happened. And too often, there's that regret that they express. I wished I had fill in the blank. Or I wished I hadn't, fill in the blank. Keep yourself safe. Stand up for what's right. Stand against what's wrong. Don't put yourself in a position where you are needlessly victimized or martyred, because you need to be in the fight. You don't need to be out of the fight because you went in too hot and heavy at the wrong time. Does that make sense? I think I'll leave it at that. But it's coming. We're going to see how it comes. Okay? Look, you all have a good day. Don't worry about it. Don't get all fretful about it. Just be ready for it. And if you need to take yourself through some mental scenarios and some visualizations, I suggest that you do that so that you'll be more ready than if you don't. So remember that we prepare well today in order to live well tomorrow. And preparing for the possibility of violence is always important, but probably more important now than it has been for some time. So you all have a good day, and I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.